Here with talented young trainer, Mr. Rick Morones Jr. from San Antonio, bringing you the Boxing 411. We're going to be discussing this Saturday night's main event from the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. Mr. Manny Pacquiao makes his comeback to the ring, taking on Timothy Bradley, the Desert Storm, in the long-awaited comeback. Rick, the original fight was in 2012. Obviously, it was surrounded with a ton of controversy regarding the two judges. Both fighters have claimed that this rematch is not going to go to the judges' scorecards. It's going to end in a knockout. But with the physical durability of both fighters and the fact that Timothy Bradley really doesn't have that kind of world-class power, do you see this one ending in a knockout or going to the scorecards, brother?
It's tough to call. They're both, Bradley's proven he has a great chin. Of course, Manny Pacquiao's Manny Pacquiao, so I don't think the last time, it's been a while since Timothy Bradley has knocked somebody out, so I don't see him, coming in and getting his first knockout in a while against Manny Pacquiao. But, Manny Pacquiao does possess that power, that elite punching power that just one shot can pretty much take you out. So Timothy Bradley hasn't shown at that level yet that he's been able to knock, his opponents out. But no, I think, it's a tough one to call. Like I said, they've both proven themselves in their own sense. Timothy Bradley, like I said, he's a real gritty fighter. He finds a way to win, whether it's help from the judges or not. He ends up raising his hand at the end of the fight. And Manny Pacquiao is just Manny Pacquiao, the guy we fell in love with. Great hand speed, great footwork, great punching power, fan favorite, very, very presentable, nice person. So, it's the ultimate fight. I'm very excited about the fight. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and to be a little more specific, yes, you're absolutely right. It has been a while since Timothy Bradley knocked someone out. It was Joel Casamayor, a 40-plus version of Joel Casamayor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a while. He doesn't have very many knockouts on his resume, but let's take a look at the strengths and the weaknesses of both fighters. Timothy Bradley, this is a gentleman who's very athletic, a guy that seems to be his forte, his confidence, his iron will. He's very, very mentally and physically durable in the ring. This is a gentleman who, even when he gets floored, and even when you hurt him, boy, you better hit him with a bat because he's not going away. He just keeps on coming and coming. He's like Jason from the Friday the 13th movies, brother. But, his athleticism, his mentality, his ring IQ, he's very, very intelligent. So in your mind, what is his game plan against a guy who's a very effective aggressor like Manny Pacquiao?
Well, he's going to have to box. He's going to have to show the same Timothy Bradley that we saw against Juan Manuel Marquez. I thought he fought probably one of the greatest fights of his whole career that I've seen him fight. It was pretty much close to perfection. I mean, he stayed on the outside. He didn't load up on as many shots. He was just big, quick combinations, step to the side, step over, quick right hands, load up the jabs. And I think that's what confused Juan Manuel Marquez quite a bit. But, I think he's just going to have to stay focused, listen to the game plan, and just follow instructions of Joe Diaz. Joe Diaz did a great job in the corner. I was listening to him in the corner of that fight against Juan Manuel Marquez. And, everything was real proficient that he said. Keep boxing, keep boxing. I think he learned his lesson, though, against Provocative. After that fight, he realized, I can't sit in the pocket and trade with these kind of guys anymore.
Yep.
So he came out and boxed, and he showed against Provocative, he showed that grit, that fighter that just is willing to leave it all in the ring. The punches he got hit with, not any fighter can just take those punches and stand. Next fight he showed he has a boxing skill, he has athleticism to box, to stay on the outside and pick apart his opponents. So, he's definitely going to have to stay on the outside against Manny Pacquiao. He can't want to sit on the chair and try to trade with him. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, because of Timothy Bradley's athleticism, his speed, his reflexes, his footwork, all of his athletic attributes, it allows him to be a chameleon in the ring, where he doesn't do any one thing extremely well, but he does everything, good. I mean, he's very proficient at everything. So it's been really hard, I think, for all of the fans to embrace this guy who doesn't have anything that really stands out, like one-punch knockout power, like tremendous defensive guile, but he's an elite-level talent, and it's because of athleticism, his durability, his ring IQ. But when you look at that fight with Juan Manuel Marquez, this is a gentleman who's not proficient at taking the lead. So it was actually a little bit easier for him to limit his sample size, move in and out with his faster hands, better footwork. Manny Pacquiao, he's a guy that's going to take the lead. He's going to cut off the ring, and he's going to use his footwork to maneuver around you, to punch you at odd angles. Don't you think that maybe Timothy Bradley has to mix strategies against a really, really quick, durable, strong fighter like Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's gonna have to, like you said, be one of the chameleons, and he's gonna have to do different things in there. You know, he's gonna have to use plan A, B, and C in that ring in order to come out with the win. You know, and Manny Pacquiao he showed against that Brandon Rios fight, against Brandon Rios, who's a solid opponent. You know, Brandon Rios, you know, he's a former world champion, so it's not just any opponent that, you know, Pacquiao picked to come back. But, you know, he looked very well. He showed a lot of signs of the old Manny that we fell in love with. Quick angles, quick footwork, quick hard punches. You know, and Timothy Bradley saying, you know, that he doesn't have that fire anymore. I mean, he showed some fire. He showed some fire. You can't take away the chin that Brandon Rios has. You know, Brandon Rios has a good chin, so it wasn't. I didn't expect him to go in there and knock Brandon Rios out. I expected him to go in there and punish him, which he did. You know, so Brandon Rios is not a guy that you can just say, oh, he's gonna, you know, knock out. I don't think he's ever been stopped. I don't think I've ever seen him been knocked down. So, you know, it was a great fight, a great performance by Manny Pacquiao, and, you know, Timothy Bradley is still, you know, he still feels he won that first fight. So, you know, I mean, as long as he don't fight like he did the first fight, he's gonna have to change things up because he didn't win the first fight. You know, so that's all respect to Timothy Bradley and Joe Diaz, but he, you know, truth is truth. He didn't win the first fight.
Yeah.
You know.
And what's amazing is you look at the face-off, the explosive face-off with Max Kellerman on HBO, absolutely brilliant. And it's done wonders to promote this event because Timothy Bradley said those magic words. You don't have it anymore, Manny. You don't have that killer instinct. You don't have that fire, that hunger. You know what? Was that a smart thing to do, brother?
Man, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what he was drinking that night, or, you know, if he had too much to drink. But
you know what, Rick? We're in San Antonio, brother. You can say it. Go ahead, man.
No, I think he was drinking the pendejo juice. I'm sorry, but for us Mexicans, we know what the pendejo juice is, and I think Timothy took a couple of them shots before, you know, he did that face-off, you know. And like, I got all the respect for Timothy Bradley. He's a great fighter. One of my favorites is just, you know, you don't go out and put a man's manhood down like that, especially right in front of him, especially a legend, a guy like Manny Pacquiao, who's done so much for the sport of boxing as well as outside. You know, you don't sit there and kind of bring him out so you don't have the fire, the hunger. Now, I have a question for you. Okay? I'm curious to know, because I don't know. I don't know this, so I need to ask somebody. What fight he saw that convinced him that Manny Pacquiao doesn't have the fire or the passion or the hunger anymore? That's what I really don't know what fight he saw. You know, like I said, he got caught against Juan Manuel Marquez. There's nothing wrong with getting, I mean, of course, I mean, nobody wants to get caught, but it happens. It's boxing. You put that little 8-ounce glove and somebody's trying to knock your head off, he got caught with a good shot.
Well, Rick, honestly, I think maybe he saw the same fight that C.J. Ross and Dwayne Ford saw back in 2012, brother. What do you think, man?
I think they were on the pendejo juice too, Joseph. I think all three of them drank it.
You know what? Honestly, I think this is an ominous sign of things to come for Mr. Tim Bradley. And before we get into your prediction, brother, honestly, Pac said something that was very profound, man, at the end of that face-off. He said, those who are humbled will be exalted, and those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Obviously, Tim Bradley is coming in this fight as one of the more confident fighters in all of boxing. Is this an ominous sign of things to come for Tim Bradley, brother?
Well, I mean, it's tough. That's tough to say, but, you know, for Manny Pacquiao to sit there and you know, you're looking at Manny Pacquiao. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao. We're not talking about that's where my confusion is right now, Joseph. I was confused when I watched it. I said, you know, what is he talking about? You know, you're talking to Manny Pacquiao, you know, and like I said, I am not convinced. I'm not convinced that Pacquiao doesn't have it anymore. You know, and like I said, I think Timothy Bradley is a great fighter. I think this is going to be a great fight, and especially in the sport of boxing, anything can happen. However, I'm not convinced that Manny Pacquiao doesn't have the fire, or doesn't have the hunger. I still think it's in there, and I think come this Saturday, you know, April 12th, we're going to see an old Manny Pacquiao that we fell in love with back in the day, and you know, and it's I'm still confused. Timothy Bradley, you know, that he's pretty much, it seems like he's pretty much feeding off the knockout loss. You know, he's not the same. Last time I checked, against Pacquiao, the first fight, and then against Provodkinov,
Yeah.
Timothy Bradley was getting wheeled off to an ambulance in both of those fights. You know, so who's to say Timothy Bradley hasn't lost a little bit of himself?
Very good point. It's that sustained damage that's just a lot more detrimental to a fighter's longevity, his health. Obviously, Tim Bradley even admitted that he was slurring his words a month after the fight with Provodnikov. But when you look at Manny Pacquiao, and we're going to close things up with this, Rick. When you look at Manny Pacquiao, this is a gentleman who really doesn't get enough credit for his technical prowess. This is a gentleman who everyone thinks, well, he's really aggressive, he's reckless. Well, every single person that has sparred with him, they say, well, he's not as reckless any longer. This is a gentleman who puts his punches together in combination, moves in and out of range. Even when you try to counter him, he's going to use his footwork. If you try to actually pressure him, he's going to use his footwork as the foundation of his defense. He's going to maneuver around you. He's going to jump in and out with quick combinations. And if you actually try to use the ring, boy, he's going to cut you off, and he's going to cut you in half. This is a gentleman who is the total package, and honestly, he doesn't get enough credit for his technical prowess. Obviously, everyone knows him for his power. So, Rick, we need a prediction, brother. What round? Is this going to be a knockout? Is this going to be a decision? What do you think, brother?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to, I mean, it's tough, it's boxing again, but I'm going to have to say Manny Pacquiao stops him in the late rounds. You know, I think Freddie Roach is a great trainer. You know, I think he, sometimes for trainer and fighters, the shoe fits and sometimes it doesn't. You know, in this case, Manny Pacquiao and Freddie Roach, it seems like they were meant to meet each other. You know, you see Freddie Roach's his passion, and you see that fire in him when he's working with Manny, and you see Manny, same, you know, the shoe just fits. So, you know, I think it's going to be a great fight, but I just think Manny Pacquiao's speed, you know, coming in with that chip on his shoulder, you know, going in there to humble Tim Bradley, as we said earlier, you know, I think he's going to come in there and just put some work on Timothy. I think Timothy will have some success early. I just think Manny Pacquiao's power and speed will eventually catch up to Timothy Bradley.
And honestly, Freddie Roach, you know, it's debatable who's the better trainer because Joel Diaz is very sharp, former lightweight contender. Freddie Roach, former contender as well. Both former fighters, but Manny Pacquiao's the better fighter.
Yeah.
He's got the better apprentice. He's got the better student. Honestly, the more athletically gifted, the more power, the more speed. I think he's got all the advantages on all of the intangibles going into this fight. So, Rick, your final prediction is a mid to late round stoppage. And, yeah, I have to agree with you, man. I mean, I don't know. Wouldn't this be something if we got another controversial decision, guys? Anyway, that's for another episode of Boxing 411, but thank you guys for joining us. I'm Joseph Heron, here with young, talented trainer, Mr. Rick Morones Jr., bringing you the Boxing 411.